Alright, let's get started. Good afternoon. Welcome to a live stream. Kind of like this music, but I should probably turn it down so I can talk. There it goes. Okay, so that should be that. Okay, good. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to a live stream. This is a live stream for DGST 101, a class at the University of Mary Washington in the summer 2021 term. My name is Zach Whalen. This is week 4. This is day 1 of week 4, and we're really pushing to the end here now. So we have a 5-week class, and week 5, I'll just go ahead and tell you, is mainly just wrapping up and reflecting. So this is the last push, really, and then that'll be it. Hang on a second. I'm going to close my door so I don't get interrupted. I'm back. My kids are just being a little bit noisy. So today, looks like I got a couple viewers on the Twitch dashboard, so that's good to see. And I saw somebody gave me a thumbs up in Discord, so that's good too. Whichever way you're watching, I'm glad you're watching. Of course, if you're watching this in the archive, that's okay too. So I'm going to share my slides actually in both Discord and Twitch so that you can refer to them if you'd like, because I have a lot of links in these slides. And you might find it useful to click on those links. I'm going to be clicking on them, obviously, today in my talking. But there we go. So these are again, there's lots of links in here, so I thought it might be useful to to share that. All right, so hope y'all are doing okay. Hope y'all are finishing up or have finished up week 3 okay. I noticed I'm not at all caught up on grading, but I noticed in Canvas it looked like only 13 submissions for week 3's work, and there should be about 10 more. So hopefully you're doing okay with all that. I don't care if things are submitted late. The only issue with lateness is that then things pile up because there are new things that are introduced. So I mean, as long as you can catch up and do it retroactively, that's all fine with me. Just let me know where you are. If you haven't turned things in, please send me an email or a Discord message and just kind of let me know what your plan is. I mean, you don't have to tell me what's going on or where things are late. It doesn't. I mean, I respect your privacy and I trust you to tell me if you needed to do things a little bit differently. I understand, but I just would appreciate an update if you haven't checked in recently. Okay, so today is, as you see, I'm going to be introducing this final set of concepts, the digital methodologies, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what those are. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let me try this one. Okay, so I'm going to explain a few things and show you, I think, lots of examples today to talk about what these actually are. So I want to explain digital methodologies. It's a term. I want to make sure you understand what I mean when I use that term. I'm going to introduce you to some of the modules that you can choose from for this week, and your goal is to actually go ahead and choose one today. And then you're going to start learning some HTML coding. So overall, the big picture this week is actually 2 things combined into one, even though it's going to be one assignment. But it is like a module assignment that you did earlier, but there's a new component. So instead of reflecting on it by posting on your blog and recording a video for Discord, instead of doing those things, I'm going to ask you to do something different. This isn't reflection, this is sharing. So I would like for you to share the results of whatever you do for the digital methodology module this week on a web page that you code yourself using HTML. And so I'm going to teach you these things, but there will be, as usual for this class, a lot of self-directed learning. And so I want to show you some things that you can do to get started learning some HTML, and that'll be one of the goals for today. Okay, so as you see for the live stream, my goal is to explain some terminology and introduce the 4 module options, and then give you a quick intro to HTML. Basically, this week is going to be like a crash course in web design, but this whole summer term is a crash course in all kinds of things. But putting some things on the web, that's what we're after today, but doing it in a pretty old-fashioned way. And I think that's a really important thing to know how to do. Not that that's the way to make websites these days, although you certainly can. But to understand that this is where, this technology that I'm going to introduce you to, HTML, is something that is, it's still there. Like, it's still the basis of everything else that we're using. Even this slideshow that I'm using right now it's rendered in HTML. Like, it's something that Google Slides is doing, and but it's the same language and set of technologies that I'm going to show you how to start using just with a basic text editor. So that's the idea, and that's where we're going for today. As usual for these live streams, I'm going to move kind of quickly because this is being recorded and you can always look at it later. But if you do have questions as I'm going, then please ask and I will try to answer them. That is really the main advantage of watching live if you are able to. So let's talk about digital methodology. So this is kind of a academic-y word, and so I thought I'd try to break it down a little bit and make sure you understand what I mean by this, right? So instead of methodology, if we kind of take that word out and then replace it with something that means the same thing, we might say a methodology is a way of doing things. And so a digital methodology could be a digital way of doing things, right? So we're already kind of making this a bit more user-friendly, I hope. It's a way of doing things. It's a way of getting something done, right? And then we can get more specific than that, though, because we aren't just doing things. We're doing specific kinds of things because this is a scholarly academic context. So what kinds of things could we do here, and what kinds of things am I talking about? I basically just mean answering questions and testing hypotheses, right? So doing the work of scholarship or research, those are the kinds of things that we're doing when we talk about our methodology. It's our ways of doing the answering of questions and the testing of hypotheses. That's the idea of methodology. All right. Now, digital is a word that can mean lots of different things, and in this case, I want to be specific about it, which is that I would like to. I'm interested in. I'm talking about using software and computer programming. So this module could be a little bit more technical than the last couple ones, but I think that's okay, and I think you'll find, as is always the case, that you have options, and I think you'll find something that'll work for you, right? So I'm going to show you those options pretty quickly here. Okay, so to kind of sum that up, then you could say that instead of a digital methodology, or what I mean when I say digital methodology, is really a way of answering questions and testing hypotheses using software and/or computer programming. So that's a lot. I mean, that's a big mouthful of words, but that's maybe a bit more precise or more, approachable. But that's the idea. When we talk about digital methodology, we're talking about answering questions, testing hypotheses, using software and/or computer programming. Now, one of the things that you'll see as I start to explain some of these examples is that computers can answer certain questions. They can't answer others. So computers are very good at things like counting and comparing. They are not very good at interpreting or explaining on their own, at least. And so we have to be careful about and think reasonably about which tools we're using and what those tools can actually do and what they can't do. And understanding those limitations is a big part of what I hope you learn from this module. Like, not that these things are bad or broken, but that they can do certain things really well, but we have to be careful always not to overstate what they're doing, right? Because that is a big theme. I think you'll see when people talk about digital technology, they tend to overstate what it's doing for various reasons. Okay, so that's the idea. That's what we're working on this week. Again, you're going to do some of this work, and then you're going to create a web page explaining it. I won't be able to talk much about the web page today, just in terms of time, but I can introduce the basic idea probably. Okay, so for this module, I would like for you to choose from one of these four. So these are all on the dtsd101.net website, but these are the four that I would like for you to choose from for this week, because I really want you to find a cohort of other people working on a similar project, and by just limiting you to four, that makes it more likely that you'll have at least one person that's working on it. And I think it can be really important, especially for this module, because there's a lot of tools that you will need to look at, a lot of different things you might want to do, and you might find it challenging at different points. Of course, you can ask me for help, but also it might be helpful to see other people working and kind of ask them what they're doing, and then that might help generate ideas. And you can also help each other troubleshoot different things. You can talk about, like, hey, what are you doing for this one, and why did you do it that way? And I think that would be a good conversation to have as you're working through whichever of these four that you have done. Let's see. Yeah, these are all here. Right, so you can go here to methodology modules and then find them. You will see that there are more modules than there are more methodology modules. And actually, I have a bunch more on the new version of this website, but the four that I'm asking you to choose from are actually, they all showed up right here. So networks, digital journalism, text analysis, and then image visualization, which is, I changed the name of that for the new website, which is cultural analytics, right? But it's the same idea. So not that yet. We'll get to that in a minute. So these are the modules, and like most of these, like you've seen modules before on here, they have some introduction, they have some concepts that are interesting, some possible things you might want to do with it, and then a lot of tools that you can use. So I'm going to give you an introduction to these modules, but of course the content here should be okay, although this one like really needs to be expanded. But yeah, take a look through those on the dgsd101.net website, or I'll say if you want to, you can always look at this site. It's not done, but the new version of the DGSD101 website is new.dgsd101.net. Like this front page is basically a placeholder, but the modules page, most of those are actually complete. So you can click through and look at, in some cases, a slightly more updated version of these along with all the others. Okay, so that's just a side note though. Okay, so let me see. Oh, up to 4 viewers on the stream. Great. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see that number. So I'm going to move on to talk about these modules in a little bit of detail, mainly because I want to show you some examples. Because I think all of these are pretty abstract the way that they're named, and so and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it might be kind of hard to imagine what kind of thing you could do with these. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to share some examples. As I do this, something to keep in mind is what question is being asked or what hypothesis is being tested. In the instructions for the assignment, I've actually kind of queued you up with that. Like I've suggested that once you choose a module, you really should have a pretty clear direction for the work you're going to do as soon as possible. Because even at that early stage, you might realize that actually this software, this tool, this approach, this isn't going to actually answer the question I'm interested in. And so in that case, you might need to switch to a different module or do something different entirely. But think about, as I show some of these examples, what are the things they're trying to figure out and improve as they go through it. Okay, so cultural analytics, also known as image visualization. This is when we're using software or programming to look for patterns, trends, or themes across cultural content. And in this case, I do usually mean visual analytics, just because I also have a text analytics as a separate kind of thing. You do end up using separate tools for that. I'm not familiar with an audio analytic tool of the sort that I'm going to show you, but there might be one, come to think of it. But I'm going to show you some other examples. Okay, so first of all, I want to show you 2 kinds of examples for most of these modules. I want to show you the kind of professional work that a digital scholar or different kinds of professionals have done that are an example of this. So this is a great example. This is an article by Kevin Ferguson, and he and it's taking a second to load here because I had, for some reason, the Digital Humanities Quarterly website, which is the journal that published this article, their website's not working at the moment, or it wasn't when I tried earlier. So I went to the Wayback Machine and got this article. I'm not going to go through the whole article and explain it, but I want to show you some of the things that he's produced and that he's analyzing. So this is an image, all right. So you can see this here, but this, as the figure, the caption tells us, this is actually all of Sleeping Beauty compressed into one frame. So the movie, the 1959 Disney movie, Sleeping Beauty, it's all a single, like every frame of that is now smushed together into one frame. And you notice it's not just, static noise. You can see some interesting shapes. It's sort of darker at the top and the bottom, sort of lighter in the middle. So there's something that you can detect here that's a trace of the, not the individual frames of the film, but the film overall. We can start to make arguments or derive insights by looking at this film in a really different way. And this is what you can see here. So that's an example. He's got some other interesting things. This is a montage of Frozen. And so if you know the movie Frozen, you can kind of see the structure of it going out here. But when you make this kind of montage, you can kind of decide like how wide do I want to go or what. This is, let's see if I can make this even bigger. Yeah, so I mean, he talks a bit about his methodology here, so maybe you should just take a look at it. But this is not every single frame. Like this is probably one frame every few seconds. But that's half a frame. So every 2 seconds, he's taking a frame, and that's the entire movie of Frozen right there, right? So you get a different way of seeing it and accessing it this way. He does a number of these, and it's pretty cool. So yeah. Now here we can get into some comparative stuff. So you're looking at different ones. It's interesting, if you look at it at a glance, one thing you'll notice if you look at all these is a lot of them have like a dark stripe down the middle. And I have done this as well, and I think what happens there is that's the trace left behind by the credits at the end, because the credits at the end will have kind of lighter text on the left and right at different points, and they'll go up like that usually. So that black line there is sort of the gap left as the credits roll. That's my theory. I mean, that's my interpretation anyway. So some of those movies had that kind of credit and some didn't. Right? This one's kind of interesting. You can almost see a shape in that one. What is that one? This one at the bottom left here. I can't see what film that is. But anyway, so this is so what Kevin Ferguson needed to do in order to accomplish this is a couple things. So he needed some software to, first of all, he needed to download and have a digital copy of each of these films. He needed to process those films by extracting frames from the film, and then once you do that, you get a big folder full of images. And then he needed to process that folder of images in a specific way. So he probably used FFmpeg to extract those images from the films, and I know he used a product called ImageJ in order to create these compressed and montage kind of views. So that's a pretty cool way to do it. So here's a student example. So Kevin Ferguson, he's a professional, he has resources and time to do this kind of thing. This is a student, Brian Wolf, from a couple semesters ago, who was interested in this and he wanted to try something. So he made this is called a Z projection. So it's that combination thing of all of Bob Ross's paintings, or 403 of them. So maybe that's not all of them, but he went through, there's a website he found that had like images of every painting from each of Bob Ross's shows, and he downloaded all those and then put it together using this product called ImageJ, and it created this cool, like, mashed up, smushy looking image. And with this, you can actually see some pretty interesting things about Bob Ross's composition style, like where he chooses to put things when he's designing a landscape. So that's a pretty cool project, I thought, from Ryan. So in terms of tools, if you want to do this module, some of the things that you will need probably, so if you're going to be talking about film or any kind of visual media, you will most likely need FFmpeg. And there are other ways, there are web-based ways, there are kind of software kits you can download, but really the most powerful tool and the best way to do it, in my opinion, is using FFmpeg. The challenge is that that's a command line tool, so that's something you'll have to use on the command line of your computer, and if you've never done that before, that can be pretty challenging, I guess. I can help you with it, but it's something that if you haven't done before, it may be intimidating. I can explain it, but it's something you have to kind of decide that you want to commit to. I guess one note is that I don't think there's any way to install or run FFmpeg on a Chromebook. So if you have a Chromebook, you probably won't be able to use that, and you might, in fact, have a hard time with other tools on here too. But that's there might be other ways to do it too. In a pinch, the process of extracting images from a film is something I can do very quickly on my computer. So if it comes down to it, I might be able to do it for you and then just send you a folder full of thousands of JPEGs. So just let me know if you want to do that. All right, so two other tools that I think people do find really useful. ImageJ is very powerful. It is very complicated to use, but it does work. You can download it a couple different ways. I've also just noticed this recently. You can actually run it in a web browser, which is kind of nice. I'm not sure if I've ever done this, so let me see what happens. Oh, neat. Okay, there it is. I do wonder how much power it has if it's running inside of the web browser. Huh. So, yeah, okay. I don't want to deal with that right now, but it looks like this might work. I'm not going to be able to go through the whole process of how to use the software, but if you are interested, maybe I can talk about it on a stream next time. Maybe I'll try to play around with this version of it because I kind of wonder. You know what, let me just try it, right? Ooh, what was that? Oh man, I think a bird just hit the window. Okay, so we're going to import an image sequence, and I'm going to see if I can... No, you know what, I'm not going to... This has some quirky thing to try to get files in here, and I don't have time to figure it out right now. There's an error. So anyway, ImageJ is very powerful, but you kind of have to know how to use it. Another one that is, I hope, a little bit more user-friendly is this tool that I made a few years ago. I call it IMG because it's meant to be like a super lightweight thing that does some of the things that ImageJ does, but doesn't take as much work. So this is meant to run in a web browser, and it can do different kinds of emplotments. You know what? I wonder... I'm going to need to see if I can find... I haven't actually done any of this kind of research on this computer, so I don't have... that much I can work with, but I just thought of something. I might actually have a folder full of files that would be interesting to demonstrate this with. Let me see if I can find this. If I can't find it quickly, then I will not. Oh, neat. Okay, great. So I actually have, let me use this. Okay, 1,132 images, which are scans of comic book pages from the 1950s. So I'm going to try to run this through image and show you the kind of thing you can do. Oh, hello, Chosen Clown. Good to see you. So the process here, you got to load the images here, and then once they're loaded, then you can try different things. So I'm going to first try a barcode visualization with these and see what that looks like. I think it's going to be pretty ugly, but let's see what happens. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's pretty ugly. So what it's doing is it's taking each of the images, the 1,100 comic pages, and then smushing them together. So each page image now occupies a single vertical pixel, and then sometimes that looks pretty cool. Usually this looks cooler if you're working with frames of visual media, because you'll have continuous frames that are kind of similar to each other, so you kind of see more gradual changes. Like this looks really messy to me. I don't like this, but it's okay. So you can do that. You can also do a montage with this. Let's do, yeah, this should be good. And I'll show you what this could do. This is just going to, actually that's not a good way of arranging those, but you can kind of see that there. This is the montage version of it, and really what you see as you look at it at this level isn't really much about the images themselves, but you see different like white balance settings on people's scanners when they uploaded these. So you can really see like the yellowy ones here and like the super bluish white ones down there. So it's really, yeah, this didn't really tell me that much. Plotting could be interesting. I don't know if this is going to work that well though. Yeah, you know, let's try this. I don't think this is going to be... Yeah, I mean, this would be a lot more interesting if I had individual panels. I do have some... You know what, I'm going to try this with individual panels. Okay, so I'm going to, instead of loading pages, I do have, and I'm working on... This is a tedious process, but I have been working on isolating individual panels. I have a script that can do it automatically, and the script found... You know, out of that 1,100 pages, it probably found maybe 5,000 panels, but I think there's another 5,000 or 6,000 to go if I do it manually. So I'm just kind of working on it slowly. But these are individual panels. I bet these will look more interesting. Okay, they look pretty. It looks kind of messy, but you can sort of see something interesting. Like if you look at the top here, like that's where all the speech bubbles are on these panels. You can really see that coming together that way. Okay, so let's try the plotter. So this is going to take hue and, yeah, we'll do it like that. Hue and brightness, and then it's going to try to put these on a graph based on what colors it thinks they have, and kind of you can see the distribution of the different colors basically. So this looks actually pretty evenly distributed. That's interesting there. But what this does is it takes each panel and then it computes an average color for those. So you can see the more red ones over here on the left, the more blue ones on the right. I think it might be interesting more if I took each like pixel out of each image and then took that pixel and put that pixel on the graph, and then you would see a more detailed histogram of all the imagery there. Okay, so that's cultural analytics or visual analytics, I guess. So that's that can be a lot of fun, and you can make really interesting visuals with that. Sometimes I think the challenge with this one is like, so what do you do with that? Like you've made a cool graph, but how do you, like, what do you say about it? Like, what do you do with that? And that can be an interesting intellectual challenge. So again, I'm as anything, I'm happy to discuss and talk through your ideas if you have them. But if you start with a question, I think it might help to try to see if you can prove it. So one question I saw, and I put in the assignment description because it seemed pretty interesting and kind of relevant, is so the Disney Plus TV show that's going on right now, Loki. I didn't actually look at the reasoning behind this, but my brother-in-law shared with me a theory that each episode has a predominant color scheme that is associated with one of the Infinity Stones. Like each episode has a different Infinity Stone motif in it. And that sounds interesting. Like, so you could test that hypothesis by watching all of the episodes and looking for that color scheme that you think corresponds to whatever, whichever stone you think it is. Or you could do one of those montage views like I just showed you, and you could see each episode at a glance, and you can say, oh yeah, there it is, there it is, there it is. maybe. Or you might say, actually, no, this is just an average distribution of colors, and maybe there's a couple of shots that really emphasize it, but it's not that as big a deal. You could use the visual analysis as evidence to either support or discredit that theory, and that would be interesting. I think there's something to it. I think there are a lot of really interesting colors in it, and I'm really overall impressed with the cinematography of the show. It's in some cases is very straightforward, but also really interesting things, and I don't really know how to interpret this, but in except for a couple things, but there seem to be, to me, a lot of Kubrick references, references to the film director Stanley Kubrick in terms of how some of the shots are composed, lots and lots of symmetry and lots of low angle cameras for some reason. So I'm not sure what that means, but I think it's interesting. It's something I noticed, and now that I noticed it, I can't unnotice it. Okay, so that was cultural analytics. Let's talk about text analysis, because this is kind of similar in some ways, and but working on a different kind of material, and this is text. So let's take a look at a couple things. So here's a professional example. This is probably one of the most well-known examples of a particular branch of text analysis called stylometry. And this is a situation, if you click on this link, this is a link to an NPR article about this. But this is the story was that J.K. Rowling wrote all of the the Harry Potter novels. After she was done with those, she started writing some more novels, but under a pen name. And for a while, it was not known whether or not who that was. Someone had the theory, someone had leaked that actually the author of this book called The Cuckoo's Calling, that's actually J.K. Rowling under a different name. But she had not come out and said anything. There's nothing official from the press, so or the publisher or anything. So there was a question is Robert Galbraith actually J.K. Rowling? And so stylometry is a way of comparing writing styles and mathematically comparing writing styles. So Patrick Juola is someone who does this, and he got a hold of both of these and ran them through his software and was able to say, yeah, there's a 90% chance that this is the same person who wrote these. It's kind of like a textual or linguistic fingerprint. We all have certain habits in our writing that we aren't aware of, and software that's sophisticated enough can detect those patterns and then make a statistical claim about whether two texts were written by the same person or not. It's really interesting. So it does take some interpretive work. It's not like the computer just spits out an answer, but in this case it turned out to be right, and Patrick Juola was able to use his methodology to do that. His toolkit, you can download it and use it. It's a bit complex, but it is something that anyone can use. I have not actually used it myself, but I can show you a tool that is kind of similar. So here's a student example, rather. And so this is a student, Olivia, who did this analysis of 3 different novels. And she didn't go into it wondering if, there's not a specific smoking gun she's looking for here, but she was interested in specific vocabulary, specific terminology that these authors use, and because these are writers from different time periods, perhaps there would be some interesting shifts in the vocabulary that she could identify. So she's got a word cloud here. She's got a list of frequent words and different. We can basically see different statistical comparisons of these 3 writers, and and note some interesting differences. Right. So Dracula uses the word fear a lot more frequently than Frankenstein or Carmilla. So, what does that mean? I mean, you have to decide what that means. You have to interpret it. You have to explain it. But that seems to me like a really significant difference. So, the line here isn't very useful actually, but the bar, which is very, very light in color, you might not be able to see it, but the bar there is actually what's showing the most interesting difference. But I think Olivia also did a really good job writing up and explaining her findings here. So, this is a good example in terms of that methodology. Module work. Okay, so in terms of tools, the main tool that you're going to use if you choose this module is Voyant, and it is, it's web friendly, right? So it's a website, you can put stuff in, and then you just get your results. So let's try it real quick, right? So if you're interested in looking at any kind of text documents, specifically old, novelistic writing, things like this, you can find a lot of it on Gutenberg.org, and you can download it in a way that you can actually use very quickly and easily in Voyant tools. So let's try a couple. If this was a live class, I would ask for a volunteer to suggest a book, classic literature book, to look at. But this is, I don't know if anyone will respond quickly enough. So, but I got 5 viewers. Somebody tell me a novel I should look up here, and it needs to be something published before 1923 to give it a better chance of actually being here. Just name a novel off the top of your head. I'll just sip my water while you're deciding whether to type or not. And if no one says anything, I'll just come up with something, but I'll give you a chance to interact. Right? That's the point of going live. Okay, Animal Farm. Okay, that's a good one, but they probably don't have it here because it's under copyright still, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so no Animal Farm. We might be able to find the full text somewhere else, though. Let's just try it. I mean, it's a classic novel, so the kind of people put these kind of things online. Okay, here it is. The issue, this is a PDF though, and we really want to get a plain text document if we can, because a plain text document is going to be a lot easier to work with. Okay, so here it is, kind of back, well, chapter by chapter. Sometimes this website will let you look at the whole thing all at once, but no, it's not. It's going chapter by chapter. Let me just see if I can try one more search and see if I can find it in a plain text form. I don't know. Yeah, that's the PDF again. So PDFs, you have to actually extract the text from a PDF before you can copy and paste it. So that's why it's sort of a drag to work with. I don't want... Yeah, I'm getting the same ones here, so it's not working. I wonder if I could do a type query here. Sometimes you can do that. No, I guess not. Okay, so that one didn't work. So somebody, any other ideas, I guess? Let's see if there's anything else. Oops, no. George Orwell may have published. No. Yeah. Tale of Two Cities. Yeah, that one will work, sure. Dickens is old enough. So here we go. Oh, there's a book by. Okay, never mind. So this is the Project Gutenberg webpage for this novel, and you can read this novel here in many different versions, which is where it's convenient. So if you're actually reading it, I think the HTML version is probably the easiest to visually look at and read. But that's not what we're interested in today. We need the plain text UTF-8 version, and that is available right here. So it's plain text, the same text, but it's all just letters on the screen, letters and numbers on the screen, nothing else. So I'm going to save this document. You won't see the pop-up, but I'm just going to do Control-S, and I will name this file twocities.txt, and now I have it on my computer, and I can upload it here. So let's open. I have to browse to wherever I downloaded it to. There it is. Okay, so now I've got it up here, and it is uploading. And now this is Voyant Tools' presentation of its analysis. It has this window pane kind of thing, and so it does a couple of just basic things to first, but then you can go into each of these 5 areas and change them around and do something else. So these are all spread out around the screen. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each of these you can turn into different things. The first is, like, the word cloud is pretty intuitive, I think. Each word is bigger, but like the words that show up more frequently are bigger. So Mr. shows up a lot, and that is not surprising because there's a lot of people talking to each other, and a lot of them are men, and a lot of them address each other formally in this book. So you can also see said is also very big. So that tells us there's a lot of dialogue here, lots of these men talking to each other. So that that tells us a lot about the novel already just at a glance. So one interesting challenge sometimes is to take a novel you haven't read, run it through this tool, and see what you can find, like what you can learn about it just by looking at these tools. Often you won't get any kind of information about the plot, but you might get a sense of the themes or other kinds of things. But usually, it's a challenge where you kind of can't do it. Okay, so this is a word. So Defarge, that's someone's name in the book, I think. I don't know. It's been many years since I've read this book, but I remember liking it a lot. I think I read it twice. But that's that's it. So let's see. This is telling us that the most frequent words are said, Mr., Lorry, man, Defarge. Okay. Average words per sentence are 18.7. So these numbers are interesting, but they aren't very meaningful without context. So it's actually often a lot more interesting to upload several novels and then compare them. And so this tool will give you the numbers for each of those novels. So you might want to say, like, given the work of Charles Dickens and his major novels, which one has the most dense or the most complex vocabulary out of all those? And so vocabulary density isn't like how many words overall, but how many different words is he using as he writes, or which one has the longest sentence structure, something like that. You might have an intuition if you've already read these, and then you can test that intuition by seeing, is this actually true? And these numbers here can give you that. You can also see some interesting things. These are phrases that occur more than once. So this is kind of interesting that these are somehow pretty long phrases and they're occurring a couple times each. So that's kind of interesting. You can also find that shorter phrases, and you can sort this by different things, but shorter phrases, like said Defarge shaking his head, said that occurs twice, right? I wonder if we can sort by count. Yeah, so and it's, that occurs 9 times, but that's not very interesting because it's only 2 words. But the ghost of, that shows up 9 times. That's really intriguing. 105 North Tower, that is a location that must be significant. So these are, croaked Jacques 3. That's interesting that shows up 6 times. The keeper of the wine shop 6 times. So why are these really specific phrases showing up 5, 6, 7 times? That's really interesting. So this is kind of the beginning of research. You would need to go into the actual context for these to try to figure out why those particular phrases show up frequently, and then you would have to kind of explain, like, what does that mean? Like, who cares? So what? But again, these are interesting if you do multiple documents. These are each of these little widgets has a lot of different options, and you can actually change you can just swap it out for an entirely different one if you want. And not all of these are intuitive. I will say some of them you can look at it and it's like, that's neat, but what is that? I don't know. Like, I don't really understand the mandala one. But these are things. It's pretty neat. It's voyanttools.org, and yeah. Okay, so moving on. I want to talk about a couple other module options and give myself a little bit of time to talk about HTML. So I'm going to move on. Networks. Network analysis, network tools. You will see, by the way, that some of these tools do look kind of similar, and some of them may have similar outcomes or could be used on similar things. And that's fine. And some of these, sometimes like a single tool could be used in lots of different ways sometimes too. But networks are whenever we're talking about things being connected and we're trying to understand those connections, and we're trying to find and interpret and explain those connections, usually in some kind of group, some kind of social network, some kind of concept network. And this is a really cool example that I enjoy a lot. It's called the Open Syllabus Galaxy, and it is a kind of network that, wow, this looks so cool. So basically the premise of it is like, Syllabus, this is a thing that professors, people like me, we write, we create, we give to you, but on that syllabus we have things that you're supposed to read. So we have textbooks that we're citing or like assigning, or we have other things that are being mentioned on that syllabus. So what this is graphing, like each of those, I'm going to zoom in a minute, but each of those dots is a text or book, a book or an article or something. Like, it's a piece of assigned content, and the proximity of any 2 dots is a visual representation of how likely they are to appear together on the same syllabus. So if you see clusters, you'll see groups of, you'll see disciplines basically emerging. So let's zoom in. So this orange, and they've given names to it. So this orange group here, this is American history, right? And so we can see that, and also the size of a dot indicates how popular it is or how often it's assigned. So, if we zoom way down in here, right, we can see race and U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War. It's pretty likely to be assigned along with Containment or Liberation by James Burnham. So, okay, this is not my field. I don't understand this at all, but that's what that is. America's Longest War is apparently a pretty popular textbook, and then it's often assigned with Nixon's Vietnam War, right? You can see because of that clustering. And so the coloring gives you a sense of the different disciplines, but also sub-disciplines and subfields emerge here as well. So here's kind of the Russian relations area, indigenous stuff. So what I find pretty interesting is to look for books that I have assigned, and then I often find books near it that I have not heard of. And so it's a way for me to learn about new textbooks and new ideas that are related. So I'm not even sure where my area is at this point. But yeah, usually I just kind of start with a key text and then go from there. You know, I'm gonna try one because this is, I wonder if it's in this database. Yes, it is. Great. So it's not super popular, but Virtual Muse by Charles Hartman is a book I really like teaching. And let's see what it shows up nearby. Yeah, pause and effect. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know that one on the line. Yeah, drama and games, interactive fiction, sure. Yeah, interactive fiction. Yeah, so I know many of these. These are mostly having to do with digital storytelling, digital media. Oh, and then Lovecraft jumped right in there. That's funny. That's weird that Lovecraft would appear there. But certainly writing machines, I've definitely assigned that at the same time. So, you know, I'm learning here through Lipo, yeah. Yeah, interesting. So these are moving toward, like this group is also pretty interesting too. These are all examples of digital creative writing. Loss of grasp, pry, tin print. Yeah, except that one's something else. Okay, so anyway, there's a like this is my zone right through here probably. Yeah. Oh yeah, language. Yeah, this is good. But yes, so this is what I would be interested in as far as my area, and then certainly others that are kind of out here a bit more. Yeah, interesting. As you go up, these get a bit more like cultural studies and sociology. Yeah, that's interesting how close they are, because they might appear in the same classes I would teach, but maybe not. Like that would be more, you know, communication studies kind of stuff. Interesting. So yeah, this is a network graph, and it's fascinating and fun to explore. I can get lost in here, so I'm not going to do that now. So here's an example. This is, I don't know why that didn't show up. This is a student-produced example, and this one does take a bit of explanation. This is a rugby family tree, and this is using a tool called Kumu. And I guess, I don't know if any of you are on the rugby team, but I guess they have a thing where, like when you're a new team member, you are like adopted by like a earlier like team member to kind of be your mentor and I guess helper. But they use this terminology of like mother daughter, and then if like two new students have the same mother, then they are siblings, and so they have this like complicated sort of family tree. And so Cassie was just kind of curious about, like, she has these records, and so she was like, let's see if we can put it on a graph and find anything out. So right now these are all dots, and each time a dot is connected, that tells you what their relationship is. These two people were co-parents at one point. These were mother-daughter pair. I'm clicking on these here, another mother-daughter pair, that's the yellow lines. You can also do some things in here and analyze it, I think. Let's see if I can. No, I can't do it now because I'm not editing this one. But once you've got your data in here, like Cassie does, you can actually do different kinds of network analysis on it, and you can find areas of influence. So you could find like what is the like grandmother that has had the most granddaughters, for example. Like you could find that and display it visually by making it larger, depending on the number of descendants that it has. But yeah, there's that control set isn't available when I'm viewing it this way. But yeah, really pretty interesting tool, but it matches a specific kind of data. So Cassie already had this data in a spreadsheet, and she was like, I don't know what to do with this, but you know, what could we come up with? And just kind of been talking through it, she thought this would be an interesting idea, and it is. I think she's continued to update it actually, even though she's graduated, because it's also a way to connect to alumni, right? So after rugby players graduate, they're still kind of in this graph, and so we can kind of, I guess, know who's who and have a way to connect with them or talk to them later. So pretty interesting. A lot of people will do if they're interested in the networking module, they'll use that same tool and they'll find some other kind of thing to map. It doesn't have to be people. It can be concepts or like organizations or institutions. Like those can also be mapped together. You just have to think of it like, is it a group of things, and are we interested in how those things connect to each other? Then that's when a network is probably the best approach to figuring it out. Two tools that people have found useful. There's plenty of others, but these two, I think, I know Kumu well enough that I can help you with it, and tags also I know pretty well. What happened there? I need me to go back there. Hold on, I got out of my slides for some reason. Let me jump back to wherever I just was. Yeah. So there we are. There we are. Okay. Yeah. So Kumu is like all these are free tools. So no, that's not what I was trying to find her project, and I could just Google it, but it didn't come up. Kumu.io, and it's It can be a little weird to work with at first, I would say, but it is not bad. And if you explore the gallery, you can kind of see examples of how people have used it, and pretty neat stuff that people can do. All right, so yeah, this is Kumu. I like it. It's fun. It makes pretty nice looking things. The challenge is always trying to understand what you see. And if a graph gets too complicated, it can become sort of the hairball effect, which can be not very useful for anyone, but kind of neat, but not really useful. Tags is the thing that you can work with if you are on getting information from Twitter. In fact, I'm going to try something. I might have, I have several tags archives running. The way this works is that you set it up to capture tweets that match a certain search query. So as they're tweeted, they get copied into the spreadsheet, and then you can develop this archive over time. I have several that are running that I haven't. Yeah, let's see. So this is one I started, last summer. Let's see. Yeah, so these are tweets that include the hashtag COVID-19 or coronavirus and the hashtag 5G. And so I was kind of interested in seeing if people were talking about the hoax or the I guess it's a theory, but the idea that 5G networks somehow cause COVID-19. And so I thought it would be interesting to capture tweets about that. Let's see if this will work. Sometimes this doesn't work very quickly, but we'll try it. This is going to be, I guess, a network graph of people, and what we're going to see are tweeters, like people that are posting on Twitter, and then their connections will be like this person retweeted this other person, or quoted or replied, I think. And so it takes a minute to process this data. This is what, 172,000. So this is going to be a big hairball whenever it loads, but you'll see what it looks like, I suppose. What this might be able to show you if you timed out. Okay. What this might be able to show you if it works is a key influencer. Like, so is there one person that keeps tweeting this stuff and people keep retweeting that one person? And this is the kind of thing that Twitter, when they try to crack down on misinformation, they look for this kind of information as well, and they figure out, oh, this is a key influencer in this area, so let's see if we can make them less influential. Okay, so I'm going to just let that, you know what, it's just going to take up memory. Yeah, no, I'm going to let that keep running. It might be interesting, and it should not, it doesn't seem like it's impacting the stream here, so I'll let that run. So that works. One of the other options. Okay, so the final option that I'm asking you to choose from is digital journalism, and this is one that has so many different kinds of things you can do with this that even the examples aren't that helpful maybe, but they are examples. So let me take a look. This is when you're using software or code to create a multimedia kind of explanation of complex ideas. So this is typically things on a web page, but there are also apps and things you can think about in specific apps like Snapchat even that embrace whatever capabilities those apps have. And these two examples here, these are two web-based articles, and so I really am usually thinking about the web when I think about digital journalism like this, but there are certainly others that I would accept as well that you're welcome to explore. Snowfall is kind of a classic. It's this interactive essay. It's a story, like it's an investigative report telling a story, but it tells the story through all these different media. So it's not just text, it's video, it's the imagery changes as you scroll down. Things sort of animate in and out of view. You've got all these little sidebars that add more information. You've got the slideshows. So overall, it's just a really nicely laid out and presented article, but it has all these nice these little interactive visualizations built into it as well. It's not loading for some reason, but this is sort of the classic in this field. This other one I like a lot that I think is hilarious is this one. I had this up here a minute ago, and this is a much lower stakes kind of thing. This is an article from Bloomberg about, I guess, Josh Tetrick, who is a CEO of this company that made this product called Just Mayo. But I just love the way that it's presented here. So it's got this napkin. Actually, it didn't work. Usually, he's got mayonnaise all over his face, and you have to erase it. But that's okay. And he's got these pulsating blobs of mayonnaise for these subheadings. The background color looks mayonnaisey. I just love all the attention they put into making this look kind of icky as an article, and I think it's hilarious. But that's a kind of a more subtle example. More complex examples, you can think of all the different COVID-19 dashboards and the ways that different news organizations put different information together. New York Times has done a bunch of really interesting ones, and Bloomberg has as well. I'm sure plenty of others. So those are other examples of digital journalism. In that case, they have the data behind it, and then they're trying to figure out how to present it in a way that's interactive and interesting. If you're looking for data, by the way, there is, let's see if I can find it. Is it data.virginia.gov? There's a website for the state of Virginia. I think it's this. Yeah. So if you like to do digital journalism this way, or data journalism, you kind of have to have some data to work with. There's a lot here. You can actually work with it here, and you can even create visualizations in here. So this is data.virginia.gov. Pretty cool, pretty interesting. So check it out. I was able to play around with it a while ago and found some pretty. I found it. It took some work. It took some effort to try to understand what I was doing, but you can create this kind of graphic in here using real data that is updated as they get new data. So pretty cool. I don't actually have a student example offhand. I couldn't find one, or I couldn't think of one to show. I was putting this slide together very quickly, unfortunately, but it has been done. Trust me. All right, as far as popular tools, I should add the Virginia open data thing. High charts is another. It's a tool for making nice interactive graphics. And also this idea of scrolly telling is a term that you can find different approaches to. And it's the kind of thing that you saw in Snowfall a little bit, and you can also see it in more detail here. So pudding.cool, or the pudding. This is a website. They do good stuff on Instagram too. It's data journalism, but usually of kind of unusual, kind of specific questions. So this is the question, like, are women's pockets really that different? And so they they looked at the data, and you can see here right now. This is scrolly telling, by the way. Like, as I move down, things change or kind of come into view. Like the way that animation starts right as I get to it, and then I'm sort of invited to watch it for a while. As I continue scrolling, that is their demonstration of the process that they're telling me about the results right here. But that process is something I got to see play out in that animation as I scroll down. Right. So then we can see the conclusions. And then there's some text explaining it, and then you can see their data and all this stuff. But it gets better as it goes. And they actually give you you can actually download the data yourself and try your own analysis. So the pudding, they do a lot of great stuff. I really like them, and some of these kind of go viral. Things about like which rapper has the most complex vocabulary. That was one of theirs that went viral for a little while. Yeah, this one right here. So rappers sorted by the size of their vocabulary. Pretty cool. But they also actually make some tools that are available for the kind of thing that they do. And I think that's pretty interesting and could be something worth exploring to play around with. I have not done much of it myself, but it is here, and I would love to help you figure it out if you're interested. Okay, so that is digital journalism. And that is the end of my discussion or my explanation of the different options for digital methodology and different ideas. I just got 5 minutes left in the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to explain HTML. But if you have questions about any of these, or if you're still not sure, you want to talk about it, run it by me or something, feel free to chat in Discord. I'm always happy to do that. If you see me online, then feel free to say hi and ask me what I think about something. Okay, so all this is going to be the other project that I will actually be spending more time on these streams, especially tomorrow, is this idea of coding for the web, building something for the web. And all these things that I was showing you, everything on the web, even this thing that's not loading, is HTML under the hood. So if we take a look at it, we can understand it, right? So looking at, let me find a good example of a page I can show you the source to, and it makes sense. Okay, so here's a good one. So this is the Image Day website. This one's a good example because it's pretty short. But the HTML is the language that runs everything, that makes every web page possible. And the nice thing about HTML is it's open. So like you can look at the HTML source code of any web page. On my browser, it's Control and then U are going to show me the source. And here's the source code of that page. You can see all the content there. So like if you look at it here, like features, news, documentation, download. These are the same things: feature, news, documentation, download. These are items in a list, which I can tell because of the bullet thing on the left. And these are links that I can click on, which I can tell because it's changing as I hover over it. And the things under the hood that make it those things that make it happen are The li tag here makes that the bullet point, and then the ahref equals notes, that's what makes it a link. And that's, you know, kind of all there is to it. So everything else is just sort of more complicated versions of that. Different kinds of markup create different kinds of presentation on the web browser. When you look at it, and there's a syntax to it, there's a way you have to do it. I'm going to spend more time on this tomorrow, and I'm going to show you how to set it up on your own website so you can start playing around on your website. But before tomorrow, I would recommend you take a look at one or both of these sources, which can help you learn a lot about HTML in theory. So these two are just two of many, I'm sure, websites that can teach you some HTML and CSS. Off the top of my head, Tutorials Point is another pretty good one. And I'm sure there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. I'm pretty sure there's a Khan Academy, something about it. And you're welcome to explore and find resources for you that work for you. When I think about something like HTML, I think most students learn it from a combination of three things. A site like one of these, my explaining things, and then playing around and trying things out for yourself. And that trying things out for yourself is really the most important of those three, I think. But I think having the other two, again, the other two being one of these websites and then me explaining it, I think it helps you get started. It helps you kind of solve certain problems and work through it. And I think by combining all three of those, I think I'm very confident that you will be successful this week in creating a web page. Between Codecademy and DW3 schools, they have very different, or they appeal to different learning styles, I think. So let me show you these just kind of quickly, and so you can see what's different about them. So Codecademy uses a quiz kind of structure. I think there are pros and cons to that. Let me see if I can even, if it's even working. Huh, it looks weird. Something isn't loading correctly. I don't know what's happening here. The website's sort of broken. This isn't supposed to be big like that. But basically what it does is usually it presents you with something you're supposed to do over here, and then you try to do it here in the middle, and then on the right you see what difference you've made. And then if you get it right, if you actually do the thing that they asked you to do, then you can move on to the next one. This one looks sort of, something's weird here. Let me see if maybe the style sheet's not loading right. Huh. That's odd. I wonder if I'm blocking something. Nope. Okay. Yeah, something's ironically, something about their HTML is messed up. So, but usually they're pretty good. I think the issue with them that I find is that what you do when you complete a syllabus in Codecademy is like you learn how to answer the quiz questions, like you learn how to take the test, and it isn't always easy to transfer that kind of learning into the real world scenario of you've got an HTML web page, what do you do with it? So pros and cons. I think some people really like the step-by-step procedure of it. To me, I feel like it's a bit arbitrary in some ways, the way that it puts those steps in order, and sometimes like what I find often is like they want me to do something and like I already know how to do it, so I do it the way I like to do it, but then they're like, no, that's wrong. And I'm like, no, it's not wrong. It works. But they're like, no, you have to do it our way. And then I get, I get frustrated with it that way. So that's why I don't usually use it myself. But W3 Schools is much gentler and yet still very progressive. So like going in order. So HTML, start with the tutorial. And what they do with each of these is they explain the concept and then they give you a try it yourself button here. You can click this and here's a place where you can try this out. So this is the basic HTML skeleton. What if I change something here? Let's see what happens. This is not a heading. Yeah, you hit the run button and you see what difference that made. Okay, well what happens if I take this off? Okay, so that messed things up because the paragraph there doesn't look like it used to. Something's wrong here, and oh, the colors have changed here. So you can kind of just figure it out through trial and error and playing around as you look at it, I think. So that's a good thing about this approach. There's no like pressure to get it right or to do it the way they want you to do it. You just have the concept here demonstrated, and you can play around and see what it does. Right. So then you kind of go through here. This does have a quiz kind of structure. You don't have to do that. You can just go to the next thing, next thing, next thing. Right. So I find it much more useful in that sense. You can also like with HTML5, which is the version of the language that we're on right now, there are a lot of elements that I sometimes don't remember, and so these references down here on the left, just over my shoulder, are actually super useful. So these tag lists, like I forget that some of these things are options now, like, you know, input, that's a cool option. Like, what is that? Or mark, that's cool. What does that mean? So these are things that I occasionally, oh, progress, what is that? Oh, cool, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, the point is, these are things that you can learn from if you already, like, I think W3 schools, like, if you've already had some experience or you feel like you kind of get it, I think working through W3 schools might be a little bit quicker. But if you're a total beginner, then Code Academy might be better just because of that step-by-step approach that it gives you. When it's working, I don't know what's happening to it. I don't know. It's weird. Okay, so that's it for today, actually. I don't have anything else to talk about. I've talked a lot about digital methodologies. I hope it makes sense. I hope you understand the kind of thing that you should be deciding and evaluating. Let me just... I lost my controls, but let me just go all the way back to the beginning here. Your goals and tasks for today. So you have now, I hope, learned about digital methodologies. If you've watched this so far, you should now go ahead and choose a module to work on this week. Remember, you can take a look at it on dgst101.net, or you can also go to new.dgst101.net. And I think those URLs, no, I have not updated those URLs to be the same yet. But the same content is on both sites, just the new one looks better. So those are the things that you should do. You should choose the module and then start learning some HTML coding. I would say pick one or the other, Code Academy or W3 Schools, and start working your way through it. If you find another tutorial site that you like better, then go ahead and use it. That's fine. But if you do that, please share in Discord so that other people could benefit from that as well. Like if it's something that you think works better than W3 Schools or Code Academy, then I'm sure other people would appreciate having that option as well. So yeah, you don't need to feel locked into those options. Okay, so I need to take a break. I've been going for a while, so thanks for watching if you're still watching, and I will be online this afternoon on and off, but I will try to be online. If you see me with the green button, I am available, but I might if I'm red, then I won't respond because I will be doing some grading and recording those grading videos this afternoon, so it's a little distracting for me if I'm trying to talk on those videos and then I hear the Discord noise popping up. So I usually turn myself on Do Not Disturb for that. So that's what's happening if you see that. Okay, great. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to switch the music back on for the outro so we can keep that going. Oh, I don't have my music tab up anymore. I'll find it. All right. It's always nice to end on some music. All right. Well, I will see you all tomorrow for another live stream at 1. I will mainly be talking about HTML on that stream tomorrow. But good luck getting started with the digital methodology. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I'll see you later.